Okay, so we're up now to 103. We can see Introduction to Safety, Navigating the NEC, and EWR Plans. So that's a lot of information here they're going to throw at us, and a big chunk of this is the safety stuff, and I mean, it really can't be downplayed. Is it the most exciting thing to read about in a textbook? Absolutely not. But again, that doesn't change the fact that it is very important. This lesson's unique to us here. It's the first time they actually have us go to EWR and read Chapter 1. So we actually have to read a section out of the red EWR book as well for this. So again, please keep that in mind moving forward. You always want to check, are we reading everything we're supposed to? So anyway, we'll start here in the blue book in 103. We have some hazardous material communication stuff. Again, the real not so exciting stuff for sure, but give that a peruse. And you can see there's quite a lot of info there for that. Now we get into some more specific electrical safety. And again, make sure you're at least taking a look at all this stuff. We're getting into here's a good chart, honestly, and we do get into this a lot deeper, but for now, bear in mind there's a proper plug for every cord. Every cord has amperage and voltage ratings and configurations. You can see the various amperage and voltage ratings here, and those are labeled that way for a reason. That's what they're intended to do, and nothing more. You always get people saying, "Oh, can I change this cord to that cord?" And the answer is, you better know if your cord's rated for what you're using it at. And you can see this is just a fraction of the options out there, but kind of getting us off track here. I do want to mention they have non-locking devices. So these are all straight blade versus what they call locking devices, otherwise known as twist lock. So you're going to see those are all kind of round. You're going to plug them in, give them a little twist, and it locks them in there. They're known in the industry as locking devices. Kind of a sidebar there. But again, defective equipment, cords on a job site, everybody's responsible for everything that's there. So we're specifically held to electrical safety standards for sure. So we got to watch not only our own equipment, but everybody else's equipment. GFCI devices, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about those in a future chapter for sure. They're going to get into some shock hazard type stuff, and there's a ton of content, a ton of stories out there. I mean, electric shock, as you can see here in these photos, is honestly one of the worst injuries I think I can imagine. You don't ever want to be involved in any incident like that. It can't be taken too seriously. So again, please read through this section, take it seriously, give it some thought, because it is a very serious thing here that we've got to be worried about. Here we get into some fall safety, ladder safety. Some interesting stuff there. This is probably the most common serious injury that anybody sees on the job, unfortunately. I do want to tell you to pay attention in this ladder section, especially the extension ladder section. The information up in this graphic here especially, you will see that again quite a few times actually. So these formulas here and everything, really make sure you're reading that and understanding that, because it does come up again. More ladder safety. You can see it's a ton of it, but again, it's very serious. I happen to have the honor of having my company's first ever OSHA violation at the time in 25 years, and it was for ladder safety. And not a fun conversation. I can guarantee you guys that. So now we're getting out of the safety. We're getting into the NEC, into the code, National Electrical Code. This is a tremendously important book for any electrician, anybody in the industry. I'm going to have a separate video here just focusing on a little bit of introduction to the NEC for you guys. So please be sure to watch that as well. But here they're going to kind of give you the structure and the layout of the code a little bit. And the EWR book does a really nice job echoing this a lot. So we'll spend a little more time here. So there's your 103. We're going to jump over to EWR book. Again, we got to read EWR chapter 1 as part of this chapter. So again, a lot of this is going to echo the same stuff, the safety stuff. I do want to point this out because it's kind of an argument every year. How many of you guys realize that a switch is off? You take your meter lead across an open switch, it's energized here, switch is off. You're going to read 120. That's a fact, right? Voltage is the difference of electrical potential. Well, there's 120 volts here. There's no potential there. There's no electricity there. So we have 120 volts different. that's kind of a side note. I always like to mention it, but just think about that. Keep that in mind as we go through and talk about theory later on in the year. But anyway, more safety stuff for sure. They get into OSHA a little bit here, which is pretty serious stuff for us out on the job site. Again, it's not the most exciting, but it is tremendously important. But now they're getting down to National Electrical Code, and they do a nice job kind of discussing how it's laid out. So the code is laid out basically in 9 chapters, okay? So your chapters 1 through 4, as they say here, they apply generally to all electrical installs. So anything you do, you need to abide by the information found in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you get into 5, 6, and 7, that supplements or modifies chapters 1 through 7. So that's going to be special occupancy, special equipment, special conditions. So if we have hazardous locations, solar photovoltaic arrays, sort of the more specific stuff that needs to be addressed separately, that's where you're going to find that. But everything in here still applies in your 1 through 4. You get into chapter 8, that's just specifically communication systems. Chapter 9 is going to be all your tables, so we're going to find a ton of information about wire size, conduit size, and then informative annex there at the end. But that's a really nice breakdown of how it's laid out, and obviously there's a ton of info there, but it's just nice to have kind of that overhead view of it all. And here they give you each chapter, and I do encourage you to check these out. You're going to spend a lot of your time in chapter 2 and chapter 3. Again, as we mentioned, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are sort of the general use chapters, so that does stand to reason. They're getting into the annex a little bit there. They do have some language conventions that they want to talk about. Pay attention to those, because it sort of gets to be legal speak in a way. So it's definitely good to sort of understand the common numbering. I want to point that out. So the code is laid out. For instance, the code will be 310.15. Okay, but what they do is so 310 references the chapter, the subject, and then .15 is kind of a subsection. And I'll look at that in the next video and try to explain that a little better. But it's a common numbering system. So the same system is used all throughout the code. So .15 is going to mean the same thing in chapter 301 as it does in 310 as it does in 320. How to spot changes, make sure you take a look at that, because again, the NEC does change every 3 years. What else is good here? Then they get into kind of some of the real minute detail, the building codes. They do start talking about UL listing, things like that. Again, they're getting really specific with all that. But I do want to mention that the trade sizes here, the metric versus standards. I always find this kind of funny here, this section here. They say we've used the English system of weights and measures, but this is changing. They always insist that we're going to start using the metric system. I don't know about that, but we are always using, almost always, the standard system, your half-inch measurement, your three-quarter measurement. But they do actually list both in the code book, so be aware for that. They refer to trade sizes. Again, when I say half-inch conduit, three-quarter conduit, almost nothing's exactly half-inch or three-quarter. It's always something close to it, but that's what we call the trade size, is those sort of nice even fractions in measurement. So again, now they're getting into some sort of math conversions, things like that. Hopefully a lot of these things look familiar to you guys from your general math classes. If not, we can get a little deeper into it for sure. And then, like I said, to get into some testing labs, things like that. But again, the big thing here, obviously, for this whole chapter, safety and NEC. So like I said, I'm going to have a second video. This one's getting kind of long, but I want to hit the code with you guys a little bit as well, because you're going to spend a ton of time in that code book. So go ahead and jump into that.